Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and guys, thank you so much for all the support and how far the channel has come. Now today, I do have a really cool keyboard. It is the Kzzi new low profile. It's supposed to be the I75 version 2. Now, I didn't get to try the version 1, so I don't know the differences between this and the version 2 too much because I don't have a hands-on experience, but I do have other low profiles that I've tried. You know, the Lofree, the Newfie, and the Chill Key. So let's go into this unboxing, take a look and see what's the difference and which one is the most worth buying. So let's get straight into that, and please make sure to like and subscribe. Starting off with the unboxing of the Kzzi I75 version 2. Thank you again for Kzzi for sending this out. Now, this comes with this huge manual. One thing I would say is that I think it would have been nice if they did this more like what Newfie does, where the manual is like a poster, so it actually is a little bit more useful. Right, like it can be used for two things, but as you can see here, this box was nice, but the way they put the accessories, I'm gonna be honest, a little bit disappointing. I think it would have been nice if they had it in a little box or something. It would have just improved this whole unboxing experience. Now, you do get a basic cable and you do get a kick-cap puller and switch puller, and that's kind of what you're getting. This is the actual board though. So the board does look actually really nice. What I would compare this to would be like the Lofree and the Lofree Lite. This thing I think is actually a lot better. The build quality is really nicely done with the metal all around, which is impressive. It is actually metal, which is pretty cool. And of course, we're gonna have to weigh this board before we do a sound test. And let's take a look at the weight, which should be about 711 grams. So now that we've done the sound test, of course, we're going to have to go straight into the teardown. Now, this is not a flex plate. So we're looking at a PC plate and not flex. I thought it was going to be flex, but nope, it is not a flex plate. It is a PC plate though, so keep in mind it's a PC plate, even though it has like all those ridges on it, which is going to be a little bit like on the scratchier side, but it is pretty nice with this whole board. And those are the Kzzi switches, which you will see more later. Now, of course, we're going to have to tear this apart. This thing is not easy to take apart. I really had a struggle with it because of the metal around it. So the way that they built this really is not meant to be taken apart. I really struggled to get everything in there. Like, as you can see right there, I left in one of those pieces and then I had to like pretty much, once I got the bottom edge out, I literally ripped apart the whole thing. My idea was, if I'm going to do a teardown to show you guys something, I should just be imagining I'm going to break this whole thing apart, because that's how difficult it was. Now, I removed all the screws from the top casing because the top casing is actually completely attached to the PC plate. You actually screw it all on. The whole top casing is like the metal piece, which is actually really cool. and really well done with a little bit of the plastic. Now, as you can see here, this is plate mounted stabilizers. These are low profile stabilizers, and it does come pre-lubed. One thing I did notice with these stabilizers from the Kzzi board was that you didn't actually get a lot of tinging, which is really nice. Now, as you can see, that's the PCB. It is not a flex cut PCB. And as you can see with the foam, it is a pretty thick foam. I was quite surprised with how thick it was, especially considering it's a low profile board. Now, the plate is 1.2 millimeters, and so is the PCB. So altogether, we're looking at 1.2 for both. Now, it does come with a silicone on the bottom, and it's actually just covering the spaces where the battery would be, and it's not actually the whole thing. So it's just a small piece right there. And this comes with a 3,750 milliamp hour battery, which is pretty big compared to the Lofree. Like the Lofree's battery was much smaller. Now, we're going to do a tape mod on this. So I did one layer first. I'd poke some holes where the screws would go in. Honestly, I probably could have just done the tape mod after I put it all back, but I screwed it all in and then I did one more layer on top, so 2 layers in total. Now, of course, I'm gonna have to put this all back together, which, you know what, putting it back together was the easiest thing out of this whole thing, and taking it apart was like one of the most difficult things that I've ever done. As you can see, like all those corners, because of the metal where it doesn't flex, right, you are having a hard time taking it apart. Now, the spacebar, even though the spacebar didn't have like a crazy hollow sound, I'm just gonna do a small mod on it. So I just add a little bit of tape and into the spacebar, because I feel like it really does help. Just having a little bit of something to fill in that space helps a lot with making the spacebars just sound a little bit nicer. And of course, let's do a sound test. Now, we did the sound test, we did the teardown of the Kzzi I75 V2, and honestly, it was incredibly hard to take apart. You guys saw it, and I showed you guys like a little bits and pieces of it, because I don't want to go fully into like, you know, a really long like time lapse of like me taking it apart. But it was incredibly hard. I actually pretty much thought I was gonna break something, or pretty much my goal was, let's get this open no matter what, even if I break it. And that's kind of like my thought process when I was just like tearing it apart to get it out. It's really difficult. If you are someone that's going to be looking to buy this and wants to modify it to make it sound better, it's not really going to be something for you, because this is really, really difficult to get apart. Like, incredibly hard. Now, sound profile wise, it's actually pretty good. The switches though, I do feel like they're a bit too light. I know that they made the update to make it a lot lighter. It's hard to actually say that like it's a much better switch, because I don't have the originals. It is kind of too light in a way where it actuates too quickly, and I'm gonna have to show you guys a little bit more in depth with taking a look like at the board itself and the switches and the software. So let's get straight into that. So taking a look at this board, it really is a well designed board. That metal all around is really a really nice touch in this low profile board. It makes this feel a lot more premium. The plastic itself as well, I was quite surprised. Like, I was expecting it to be a lot more of a cheaper plastic, but no, it was actually quite the good, like not like the best quality plastic, but a decent plastic quality for this board, especially when you consider what the price would be. And of course, I'm gonna have to go into that a little bit later. The design is really nice and clean. I really appreciated what they were doing. It really does reminiscent of like the Lofree Lite, but a premium Lofree Lite. Like, no offense to Lofree, but the Lite, considering the price, right, is a just pure plastic board that didn't feel like the quality was there. They do provide the switches on the top where you can change to the Bluetooth and wireless, and you do get a spot for the USB dongle, which is really nice to have. This board, of course, is not as thin as the Lofree Lite, though. The Lofree Lite is a much thinner board. So for those that are really looking for something that's very, very portable, of course, the Lofree Lite is going to be way more portable than these ones. This one does come with multiple angles, which is nice as well. So in terms of ergonomics, I would say this is more ergonomic than the Lofree Lite, where the Lofree Lite only had the small angle. Now that button on the top left was actually for your desktop. So if you use Mac or Windows, it helps you get right to the desktop, which is awesome. Now, this thing does have a lot of customizations available, which I found was great. The switches on these boards is a little bit light. So the typing feel, you're going to make a lot of typing errors because you might accidentally actuate a switch while you are typing. I noticed that a lot with this one where I was making a lot of typos due to the light actuation. And honestly, I'm not a big fan of that. I think that they should have probably worked on that a little bit more. I understand that they wanted to make it a little bit lighter compared to the previous version where people were complaining about how heavy the switch was. This one is a little bit too light, and the actuation of the switch is a bit too early. Now, this is the low profile switch. It is the Kzzi switch, and the Kzzi, I think that's how you pronounce it. One of the things about this switch is that it looks like it's a Kale switch, but I talked to Kzzi to see if it would be possible to even use Kale switches in this board, and unfortunately we are not. They say that it does fit. The only thing is that it might break the PCB, and that the switches might be a little bit too thick or too wide to fit in properly. So keep that in mind for yourselves. This spring also is really short. Like when I compare this to like other loop profiles that I've tried before where the springs were like 18 millimeters, this one's like we're looking at about 10. It's much shorter, which I get now why the actuation is so quick. And the thing is, I think that these switches are not the best, and I honestly do see why they did their own proprietary sizing of the switches. And sorry guys that I couldn't get kill switches in time to try to do the testings. Unfortunately, I had tried ordering them and I just got delayed in customs and I couldn't do that. Yeah, like these switches, it would have been better if they really allowed for other switches to be available to be used, specifically Kale switches, just because Kale switches are the most prominent in terms of low profile. And I think Lofree now is making more other ones, which is more like MX style. I don't like how companies are doing this. Honestly, please stop doing proprietary things for the low profiles. It does not help the users at all. Really stick with one thing and go with it. And more companies really need to stop doing that. Like, please, I beg of you, stop doing that because it really is not great. Now, we're going to check, of course, the backlighting of this board. And the backlighting on this board is actually quite impressive. Now, if you remember the Lofree Lite, you only were able to do one color. The Lofree at the time, I didn't have the lighting available because I had the prototype version. This thing has super bright lighting, and it also has RGB instead of just pure white light. Like the Lofree Lite was only white lighting. This one has all the different colorings, which is really cool. And as you can see here, that's like the lowest brightness and like highest brightness. Really impressive how they did it, and the lighting is quite accurate. I would say if you're someone that really likes their backlighting, this board is definitely one to look at. So now going on to the website for the Kzzi I75 V2. So you have 3 different color schemes: white, gray, and the pink. I got the white one, and then there's going to be the gray one, and then there's the pink one. Really, I think they should have done a black one. Would have been really nice. Like, I think a black color would have been really clean and like super sleek. But unfortunately, they don't have a black color. Now, as you can see here, they do have a new switch, new keycaps. The keycaps on these low profiles are actually really well done. I was quite impressed with these keycaps. It does have like that shortcut key, as I was mentioning on the top left. It does have a large battery, which is amazing. It does have Windows and Mac support, which is super good. It isn't the lowest profile in terms of like low profile keyboards. As I said, the Lofree is going to be much thinner. But in terms of ergonomics, I would say this is more ergonomic than the Lofree, just because the Lofree is a little bit too low for me. And this is the switch that I was talking about. As you can see here, the operating travel is really short, only 1.3, which is quite unfortunate. And note, it says that it's not compatible with other switches. Even though the pins are the same layout as the Kale switches, it does not work. and I think it's quite unfortunate. I think they should have just stuck with the kill switches. I understand the business perspective of it, and I get, why companies want to do it, but in terms of the user side, it just doesn't work well. Like, it really doesn't. The pricing on this thing is really great though. 75 USD is incredible. These keycaps, by the way, are the ABS. So instead of PBT, they're ABS double shot. And I actually really enjoyed them. Actually, compared to, say, like the double shot PBT ones, these ones I actually really enjoyed more. Now, this is where you can go in to get the driver. You just have to go into support on their website and then click on driver. It opens up a Google Docs. Just keep in mind, it will say, oh, are you sure for the virus, like virus warnings? Same thing goes for Windows when you're trying to run it. You will get those warnings. The software is a very basic software. I know a lot of you guys have seen it. It is just a skin software that many companies have used before. Honestly, I would have most preferred VIA support instead of this. I understand, companies' perspective of wanting to do it and making it look like you're providing better quality stuff by having a dedicated software. Unfortunately, this is not a really dedicated software. This is technically a way of having like VIA, where you just have a software that a lot of companies use and is just skinned over. But I think it's just better to have VIA. Like, I honestly think this software right now at the current stage is just not where it should be. You get the basics that you need, but not really more than that. While VIA, you just get a lot more customization available. Now, there is a lot of lighting available. You can see it even on the screen, and like it shows you quite a bit, which is really nice. I personally think that this board's lighting is probably the best out of all the low profiles I've tried so far. The Newfies, once the lighting did work, was really cool because it shines through the whole case, because it is a transparent case. This one, it's not a transparent case, so actually it would have been really cool. Honestly, I would have loved to see a transparent case. It's really nice to see something like that, and Newfie just done that. But in total, this board is really nicely done, and except for the software, I would say very, very impressed so far. And of course, checking with Keyboard Inspector, you can see that it is 1,000 polling rate. So I tried gaming with it. It is a little bit on the low profile, and that's that I made mistakes a lot when gaming with it just because of the actuations, but it is useful. Now, of course, I want to give you a sound test comparing this with other boards. So going into just the sound profile, comparing this with other boards, I would say the Newfies sounds the best. Chill key switches are actually really nice, but really don't work well with the board itself. It has a little bit of like this squishy sound to it. The Lofrees is really quiet, but I would say the switches are pretty good. I would say the kill switches are really well done, honestly. The I75 V2 also sounds really nice. For a low profile board, especially if you like something that sounds satisfying, this does do the job for it. I really did like these switches, but I really would have enjoyed and would have appreciated the ability to hot swap this with other kill switches, especially if they're going to go with that type of pin style. So we did the sound comparisons between this one, the Chilkey, the Newfie, and the Lofree. Now, where would I place this? Now, personally, my personal preference wise, I like the Kick 75 the most. Like, that's just my preference. I like the Kick 75 the most. But the Kick 75 isn't really a full low profile. It is a low profile, but not a low profile because it is a little bit thicker, right? It is a little bit higher up. It's a little bit bigger. This one's going to be definitely a lot thinner in most aspects, though technically speaking, the back of this, the Kzzi, the I75, is actually a little bit thicker. The Lofree is going to be a lot thinner than this one as well. Chilkey also actually is going to be similar to this one, and the Newfie. So in terms of like the profile of the boards, the Chilkey and the Lofree, not the Lofree, Chilkey, the Newfie, and the Kzzi are all in the same range in terms of thickness. The front end though, the Kzzi is much thinner than both of those. It's just the back for the Kzzi, so the angle is actually going to be what makes it similar to the other two. And the Lofree is actually the thinnest of all of them, but I'm going to be honest with you, out of every single one of those boards, price-wise, this is going to be much more affordable than the others. And in terms of comparing this with just the Lofree, like I would say this is much better to grab than the Lofree. Honestly, the Lofree really felt a lot cheaper. It was full plastic build. You don't get RGB in it. Yeah, software I would say is a little bit better than this one, but even then the software is not like an amazing software out there. Like the fact that the Newfie has the VIA support available is a much better choice than pretty much all of them. But if you're looking for something a little bit thinner that's really nice and clean and has the low profile and is easy to use, I would say pick this one over the Lofree if you were looking at it. If you got the Lofree during the Kickstarter, of course, you got a really good deal, much better. But right now in the current market, I would say it's better to grab this one over the Lofree. So I'll have the links in the description. Go check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.